Hello, you little demons. Jules here for WhatCulture.com, joined as ever by the only man who I truly respect and love like a brother. It is Scott the Tailford. Hello, my friend. How are you doing in Newcastle?
I'm good. I'm in the fanciest of studios. It's the wrestling studio, but I've commandeered it. I put a picture on the background. That's how you know that times are changing, things are happening. You've got to do what you can.
It makes my bedroom studio look very, very mediocre, but I do have something that you do not, and that is a dual head microphone setup thing.
Hell yeah,
It's
you
the
do.
only way that Scott and I can figure out how to record this video, and what a video it is today for you, my friends, because we're going to be journeying back to the grand old time, the golden age of 2005, because we are going to be talking today about the day that World of Warcraft nearly died. Now, Scott, are you an avid World of Warcraft player? Because, hand on heart, I'm not.
No, I'm not going to lie. I've watched the South Park episode on it, and I've heard of Leroy Jenkins.
All right, thumbs up. Ready, guys? Let's do this. Leroy!
And that's about it.
To be fair, though, I feel like that gives you a kind of crash course in what World of Warcraft is all about. But we do have some absolutely avid players within the community, within the WhatCulture ranks, and I know that there are literally thousands upon thousands of people still playing it today. And shock horror, things nearly came to a rather abrupt and unsightly end in mid-2005, thanks to a rather horrible plague that started thanks to a game update. Now, the update introduced a thing called the Corrupted Blood, Scott. Now, doesn't that sound scary? It sounds like a metal band that you and I would have listened to in 2005.
It sounds like my eczema problem that I dealt with for most of the 2000s. It's just, he's got corrupted blood. What else can we do? I don't know.
Thanks to this update that was added in, there was a new super boss, like a raid dungeon that was added in, and the boss was called Haka the Soul Flare, which is so extreme that it drops the E, and I'm a big fan of his work. But I wasn't a fan of finding out the fact that when you killed him, in his death throes, his final activation would see him release this curse upon the players in the raid party, and it would give them corrupted blood, which would basically damage their health over a short amount of time. And if you were a low enough player, it was pretty much instant death. The problem is that once you got the corrupted blood, any of your party members, even if you survived it, could pass it back to you, and you could pass it on to others by being in the vicinity of them if you happen to die or just happen to come into contact with them. Now, the developers obviously designed this to be limited to this one area and not escape and cause a lot of chaos, but unfortunately, it did escape, and it caused a lot of chaos. Players found out that, you can have pets in the game as your steeds, and they obviously
mounts,
carry a lot.
you might say? Maybe not?
Yeah, mounts, yeah. They found out that you could infect the pet and then immediately dismiss the pet, so that it meant that it was still infected but disappeared off of the game world. Then when you recalled it, it would still have the infection and would thereby infect everyone around them. Now, of course, I'm not saying that everyone who plays the World of Warcraft games are trolls at heart, but that is exactly what happened within mere moments, because as soon as they could, people found a way of bringing their pets into a populated town or village and killing everybody. And I'm not talking just like, it was just like a few people here. Because of the disease, the corrupted blood, it did 2 damage every second. No, it did additional damage for 10 seconds, but it was enough to kill lower players outright, and there was no defense against it. So if you were a high enough player, you'd be fine. But
well, I guess they hadn't worked on their vaccine yet. They were taking time to get it turned around.
This is where the funny things begin, because obviously it started spreading, and people then started going, if I use my mount to do it, and trolls network, they decided to just destroy the world. Because I never understand this. It's kind of like, we're having so much fun with this game. I've spent tons of time and tons of money into it. Let's just burn it to the ground just for the kicks. But apparently that's what people did. So the problem began to escalate greatly. Entire areas of the map were just listed as no-go areas, and they even set up, this is way before any of the things that we've been living through in the last couple of years, they set up quarantine checkpoints within the game where higher level players would be going outside at the towns looking for cures, looking for people who had already survived it and figuring out ways and items to get rid of the curse, because they thought it was an in-game event at some point.
Like Daisy.
And they'd have other people who were lower love player, they would stand outside of the towns and tell people not to enter, because if they did, they would die. But of course, people did anyway. So that meant that there was just a massive explosion of player deaths all around. It was like a PR nightmare for Blizzard at the time.
Well,
one of many that they'd go on to have, to be honest. honest.
Yeah, I was like, because Blizzard, I was wondering what the company response to this stuff was, because I know that overall Warcraft has been used to model all sorts of different things, economic models and whatever. Obviously 2005 it wasn't the absolute peak of its popularity, but it was close. And it was just, that whole side of it on their side is like, how the hell do we deal with this? But it is also quite fascinating to just watch it unfold.
I couldn't believe it when I read about it, because I was like, it just sounds like, if I was a game developer, that sounds like the worst possible thing. It's like, oh, thousands of players are just involuntarily being exposed to a disease and dying. And the worst thing is that you still had people who, basically, they were corrupted blood deniers, and they were going into these areas saying that it didn't exist and ended up dying. And it's like, the parallels to this real world thing is just, it's uncanny. It's
the people who say we live in a simulation, we live in World of Warcraft. It's been proven. We're literally poetically just doing that again.
But you know what? It didn't have as terrible end as you might expect, and as this title of the video might suggest. Obviously, the World of Warcraft is still thriving today. It's doing incredibly, incredibly well. And Blizzard actually turned this horrific event into something of a kind of PR stunt, because in 2008, it was still pretty fresh in people's mind, this, the corrupted blood outbreak. They decided to unleash an event to promote the second World of Warcraft expansion, Wrath of the Lich King. I know I've pronounced different people pronounce it.
I'm going to go with Lich. Or Lich.
Lich.
The Lich King.
So they promoted that by instigating a new zombie outbreak, which meant that there was a very small percentage of this being transmitted between players, but it still grew and grew and grew because of the player base. It didn't kill you as per se, but it did do a lot of damage to you, and it infected you, and it allowed you to pass on the infection. So they actually turned what was a true disaster for their game into something of a selling point for their second expansion, which people actually gave them praise for. So, it was completely brought to its knees at one point, the World of Warcraft, because apparently people couldn't log on, they couldn't do anything, their characters would immediately die depending on where their spawn points were. It was people going around carting the disease with them, like a kind of a medieval bring out your dead thing, except that they're just like spewing plagues. I mean, any fan of Warhammer 40k, any Nurgle fans out there would have been having the time of their life with this. Plagues for the Plague God, hey!
I love that they found a way to eventually capitalize on it. So that's the final stage of all these things, is like the movie adaptation or the way that we deal with it, where everything smooths off and we go, remember that thing that was insane for a while, which we're currently in the middle of in the real life, but yeah, it'll get there.
It is utterly crazy, though, because if it was any other game, if it was a lesser game with a less devoted fan base, this could have absolutely derailed and destroyed them. Because imagine that if, like, I think that somebody said it was about 10% of the player base at the time were able to just completely shrug off all of the damage without any issues, and were trying desperately to do it. But everyone else was infected at some point and could have theoretically killed them through repeated exposures. So you basically had a group of people dying, you had a load of people trying to not die and be helped by higher level players, and the higher level players who were basically acting like plague doctors, going from town to town, city to city, trying to ask for help and figuring out if anyone had come up with a solution. And in the end, do you know what? I don't even know how they solved it, apart from I think that they just did an update as soon as they possibly could. And Blizzard was forced to fix the problem with hard resets of the entire servers, so it literally just like wiped it from the entire play state, and using quick fixes, and apparently it officially ended on October the 8th, 2005, when Blizzard made pets unable to be affected by the corrupted blood. And this is the quote from the wiki, thereby rendering it unable to exist outside of the initial area.
Well, I'm glad they all got it sorted out eventually. I think that is genuinely fascinating. Like, I've read the stuff about, trying to demo certain economic models within Warcraft, but the idea that we had a very similar situation to what we've all just been through the last couple of years, or largely still coming out of, replicated in Warcraft, and there were still, I love the deniers. I love the people just standing in there going, no, it's fine, as the character dies. That's brilliant.
Imagine that, your character's there just like losing health. It's like, doesn't exist. Doesn't exist.
Nah, not for me. Those numbers aren't real. That's brilliant.
The best thing was that there were forums saying that you could only catch it once, so there were trolls within trolls, so they were basically just going like, oh no, it's okay, if you survived it the first time, you can just go back in there and it won't affect you. They went back in there and died. So
this reminds me of that. What was that? Was it Contagion, the movie that Matt Damon did? And a lot of people watched that when everything kicked off, and it was like, oh my god, this is literally one for one. But then you look at things like this, and it's like, oh, we've been here before. This is human behavior. We've done this before. Even in a Warcraft sense, we've done all of this before.
it absolutely boggles my tiny lizard brain that there would be people there that are just going like, nah, it doesn't exist. It's like, I'm literally showing you the body. But there we go. That was the day that World of Warcraft almost died, thanks pretty much in part to its own player base, it seems. But yeah, I hope that you enjoyed this tiny little gaming story. And if you'd like to see more and hear more from me and Scott, then we would gladly like to come back and tell you more tales of the strange, unknown, and weird aspects of the gaming industry. But if you want to follow us before these points, then you can do so over on Twitter. Myself at RetroJ with a 0, and Scott is over on Twitter at...
I'm at /LP89.
You're damn right he is. But that's been it from us today. Check back later for more lists, news, and other glorious gaming content. But for now, I've been Jules. He's been Scott Tailford. Oh, I'll do it.
I didn't know.
No.
Didn't know.
It's okay. You have been Scott Tailford, and we'll see you guys soon. Bye, everyone. See you later.
Bye.